E depois a gente dá início. Bom, como a maioria de vocês já sabe, ele tem um blog muito conhecido que é o dela.org. Gonzalo é formado em Comunicação e Film Studies na Universidade Católica de Montevidéu. Tem mestrado em Design de Informação no Instituto de Tecnologia da Geórgia e fez doutorado em Videogame Studies na Universidade de Copenhague. Dentre as áreas de interesse se destacam videogame, jogos, especialmente do ponto de vista de comunicação, envolvendo serious games, jogos educacionais, etc. Já trabalhou desde propaganda, Achievement Awards do Game for Change em 2009. Um grande desafio fazer um resumo da sua biografia. Gente, vamos dar as boas-vindas a Gonzalo Frasco.
Voy a falar en inglés. Primero quería disculparme por problemas técnicos. Agradecer muito invitados. Muy contento de estar aquí. Okay, switching to English. Is that okay? I can speak Portuñol or maybe Portuguese. Is there such thing? Falar inglesinho. Well, meu nome, my name is Gonzalo, and I want to tell you about many things, but especially about how games are changing. And as I was kindly introduced, I'm a researcher in games, but I also I run a studio and make games. So I want to share a little bit of my both experiences, and especially since we're in South America, and as you probably know, making games in South America is just a little bit harder than doing it somewhere else, but just a little bit. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. So this is our quest for today. Okay, so talk about video games. Since it is an academic talk, we will receive 0 gold and 0 silver. Okay, if the next quest is becoming the new South American Zynga, that will make more money. Not today. So let's talk a little bit about TV. But first, this is where I'm from, Uruguay. You probably heard about us. We're very good at soccer. Pero está tudo bom. O sea, o problema de Uruguay é como a Argentina, não com o Brasil, por assim eu digo. Ahora bem, este Uruguay, quando eu ser presidente, when I be president, I'll change the flag to this. And one of the interesting things that we have in Uruguay right now is the one laptop per child project. Uruguay right now is the only country that has 100% of all school kids have their own notebook and are online. Not only they have the notebook, but they also have, I think 80% of the kids have free Wi-Fi access within 400 meters of their houses, which is quite an achievement. Of course, Uruguay es pequeño, it's very small, but it's really changing the way we do things. And our next project is to get all the cows online, but that's for later. You should see these little cows on YouTube channel. It's pretty impressive. So this is my company, Powerful Games, and this is a game we just did for Warner Brothers. We were hoping that Thor was going to tank and Green Lantern was going to be great. Well, it didn't really work out the way we expected, but the game itself, it was kind of cool. So we do a lot of games for TV and some of them for movies. Anyway, so let's talk about rock and roll. Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry, you know Chucky Berry, se debe decir en portugués, ¿no? Chucky? Chucky, respeitos. No, I didn't mean to offend the great Chuck Berry, but Chuck Berry, as you know, when he was a kid, he was fighting with his sister for the highest piece of technology they had in their living room. which was not a PS3, was not an Xbox 360, but was the piano. Okay? Many generations ago, 1950s, families used to have a piano for playing. And his sister insisted on playing classical music. And he wanted to play these rhythms that he heard on the street. Okay? The rhythm and blues. But his sister kept playing classical music, and so he wanted more time on the piano, so he wrote this little song that became a classic. It's called Roll Over Beethoven. Fora daqui Beethoven. Which basically, it's said as the beginning of rock and roll. I mean, it's a crucial moment in the history of music when suddenly classical music stopped being mainstream and pop music became more mainstream. Of course, classical music didn't disappear, it became a niche, but rock and roll became one of the more important genres in current popular music. And I think in video games we're going through a similar thing with hardcore and casual games. I mean, casual games are not going to disappear, but they're going to be related to a smaller market. They're already on that way. And I think the analogy, I mean, understanding how other media, other genres have evolved can help us to better understand what's going on with video games these days. I did a little Google Images search on Chuck Berry's obnoxious little sister. I couldn't find her, but I'm pretty sure she looked pretty much like that. Anyway, so in the 60s, during the rock and roll era, people used to complain that older people used to complain, this is not music, this is noise. Okay? And that's pretty much what hardcore gamers were saying about casual games. That's not really games. Clicking on things on Facebook, that's not real games. Like we nerds know how to deal with. So it's actually pretty much the same. I mean, it's strange that we geeks ended up being this conservative. But that's pretty much what we've been doing these days. So this is an example of hardcore game, chess, and this is a more casual approach. And I think, I mean, she looks more focused and interested than Casper. So rock and roll versus classical music, nobody's going to eliminate the other one. They will coexist. But I'm pretty sure that we're going on that trend. And, well, hardcore games are just going to be smaller space and not as mainstream as they used to be. So, let's talk about Hollywoodgy. Since the 80s, when the video game industry started becoming a big cultural industry, we game developers, we have been looking to Hollywood as a model, okay? Because Hollywood is cool, and we weren't cool. And that has been the dominant paradigm. But my point is that is changing. Actually, what's happening is that video games are becoming more and more like television. Okay? So that's what the talk is going to be about. I'm going to give some examples on how more and more, if we want to think and understand the role of video games in our current culture, we should think less in terms of movies and more in terms of television. Okay? So, there are 4 main points on why games... Okay, we had this game at my university. Whoever's phone is ringing will play cerveja for everybody. We're going to start right now. The person who just had their phone ringing. So call your friends. Okay? Don't call me though. My phone is long distance, very expensive. So games are becoming disposable, smaller, more immediate and plural. Well, these are just words. We're going to see what I mean by this. So disposable games. What is this about? Well, pretty much the game industry have been trying to sell us these AAA games, but people more and more are insisting to buying these small iPhone and Android games that are pretty much like M&M's. But you know, M&M's, they're small, but you can't stop eating them, right? So this is one of the big changes. And it's... Hello. Okay. Oh. No battery. So it's good I'm not the only one experiencing technical problems. But, yeah, the problem is that I have a surprise dance, so I need... Oh, I said that out loud. I'm just kidding. Okay. There you go. Longer, but working. Awesome. So, okay. Okay, so my point was that, I mean, I was in the States a couple of times in the last few months, and I went to the shop, and I really wanted to buy the 3DS. I really wanted to. And I looked at it and I wanted reasons to take it home with me, but I didn't, because one of the main reasons is that for the price of one 3DS game, I can get 40 iPhone games. I mean, which is like 40. In 40 games, you can find like really, really good games. And that's pretty much the same that happened with films on TV. I mean, films are more expensive. Okay, I think there is some echo. Hello? And films are way more expensive. And on TV, you have more variety. They're smaller and cheaper. Okay, production of TV programs is cheaper. Can we lower the volume of the... So, what do I mean by smaller? Well, by smaller, I mean smaller, right? Yeah, you don't have to have a PhD to understand that. But one of the interesting things, I was in Germany earlier this year, and Ubisoft is actually putting online all their traditional PC games, like AAA mainstream, that's the setters. And well, I mean, online is more dynamic, but also you can, I mean, do incremental upgrades and you can produce faster. Let's take a look at early TV series. This is from a book that's very good. It's called Everything Bad for You, It's Good for You by Steven Johnson. And so he does this about the storylines on TV series. So Starkey and Hutch, you're not as old as me, that's okay. But in the 70s, basically, always started with a short story about a pimp. That was always the same, like this character. Then the main story, and then a resolution of the first story. So it basically had two storylines. Let's take a look a few decades later. So this is The Sopranos, one single episode. Okay, 10 different storylines, some of them skipping from one episode to the other one. Really, really, really complex. Okay, so episodic content on TV became more complex, but still, even though the prices have gone up, the production of TV is way more dynamic than films. I mean, a film on average takes 4 to 5 years to produce in Hollywood, and a TV episode, well, you can do that on, I mean, a season you can do that on a year. And in order to do these complex narratives on TV, we invented this previously on 24. Okay, or previously on Lost. Okay, well, it didn't work on Previously on Lost because it didn't make any sense. Okay? But it's an invention that's actually very useful to see. Okay, what is that polar bear doing there? Okay, or how come like this main character in 24 can drive like from one point to LA with engarrafamentos in 2 minutes? I mean, that's the other solution. But and in games, we invented something similar to deal with this complexity, which is the tutorial. Okay, so you haven't heard about this. This is a Uruguayan game. Now you haven't heard about it. So how does, for example, a traditional game like Super Mario teaches you complexity? Okay, well, with the tutorial. The tutorial is something that we game developers invented. By we, I'm trying to give some like of that benefit to me, but I wish I had. So the first level, you meet this friendly face, and you know how to kill it. Not to get rid of it, but kill it, because monsters have to be killed. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So what do you do in order to kill it? You jump over it. Okay, so you learn that on level 1. Then you reach level 2 and you find this little friend, which you jump on it, and then what happens? Yeah, it gets in the shelf and then goes to Progetto Tamar. No, that's a different thing. Sorry. And then you jump again and it starts moving really fast. Okay? And on the third level, you find this unfriendly turtle that you can't jump on, so you have to use the previous turtle to get rid of, to kill it. Okay. So tutorials work like that. I mean, it's what you learn on the previous levels can be applied to the current level, but adapting the information. And that's actually, I mean, the way that the human brain learns the most basic stuff. I mean, the ideology of the tutorial is extremely powerful because it basically teaches game players that knowledge is not a constant. Knowledge is something that is constantly adapting and has to be adapted to new environments. And that explains why video games are so powerful and why school is so boring. Okay? Because basically, when we're babies, we learn the two most complicated things in life, which is learning a language and learning how not to kill your little friend. You can make him swallow a little sand on the sandbox, that's okay, but not killing it. And we learn that through trial and error and by applying previous knowledge. And then we get to school, and high school and university, and basically they make us read all these books. Like it's like they teach you, like, I don't know, Turkish for 5 years without talking to any Turkish person, and then they send you to Turkey with a $10 bill, which doesn't make much sense. Okay, but games, on the other hand, they adapt to you. Okay, so we learn that way. When I'm saying that also that games are more like TV these days, well, one of the things that it's happening, but it's not yet, hasn't taken off, is episodic content. Okay, these are examples of Telltale Games, which is a company that does a lot of episodic content on the iPad. Some in Max and Monkey Island. My company, and of course, the example for my company is going to be better, so get ready to that. My company, we've been doing episodic games for TV. And the idea is actually, so you watch the episode on TV, or you download it from the Pirate Bay, but don't say that because my employers will get me in trouble. And then you can go online and play a game every week based on the exact same content that you just watched on TV. Okay, same rotato. Okay, I learned that. That's a hard word. I mean, it's not an easy word. Same scripts, same characters, same settings, every week, based on what you just watched on TV. So, of course, I mean, we did that for Warner Brothers last year for Scooby-Doo. They relaunched Scooby-Doo, and of course the video is not working, but I could pretend to be Scooby-Doo. Well, basically, it's really cool. Okay, you can play it online for free. But the interesting thing is that it's 26 episodes, 26 weekly episodes that were launched right after the TV episode. And it works really, really well. And it allows players to explore what they just saw on TV from an interactive perspective. We want to talk a little bit about different points of view also. So, games are more immediate. Okay? Games are more like TV these days because just like TV, I mean, one of the greatest inventions in television was the tape. Because it allowed to tape things and broadcast them really, really fast. Before, you had to do that on film, and then you had to go through the whole chemical process before being able to broadcast that. And games, because of tools, because of technology, they're becoming easier and easier and faster to produce. It would have been impossible for us to do weekly content for a TV series if we didn't have, I mean, stronger engines and stronger technology. So, this new technology allows for many different genres to emerge, such as news games. This is an example of a game from Kuma War, which is an American company that does war games. And the moment they killed Bin Laden, 1 week later they had this Kill Bin Laden game. Yeah, well, whatever. This is another game that I did with a friend and colleague called Ian Bogost for the American election, which also was crafted in a couple of weeks for an election campaign. That was in 2003. This is a game that actually Ian made for the New York Times, a news game. Also a game based on a piece of news that just happened. This game was crafted also in a few weeks. Okay? Before, it was impossible to do games in less than a few months. Now you can do it in a few weeks or even in a few days. And if you're interested in the subject of the mix of these really fast-made games and the news, you can read news games. I don't get a commission out of that book, but that's okay. So, by plural, what do I mean? Okay, so, okay. This is, actually I wasn't going to talk about this, but this is in honor of Roger Tavares, who really wanted me to talk about this, so, okay, blame him if you don't like it. So, let's talk about Russian roulette a little bit, to finish our presentation. Russian roulette is one of the most hardcore games there are. It has great gameplay, but very bad replayability. So, my game design challenge for you is like, if you can improve this, we can make a fortune. Okay? Okay, just work hard on the replayability part. The gameplay is really tense and it has a lot of nerve but it is a game. It's a really crazy game, maluco, nice, liberty. So, by plurality, one of the interesting things that the TV allowed is the use of multiple cameras, the use of multiple takes on a same subject. Okay? Back in the past, when media was independent and didn't belong all to Fox and Berlusconi, we did have the possibility to look at the same piece of news from different angles and perspectives. Right? And that's an important feature. And I think as games become easier to produce and faster and more disposable, just like TV, they allow us to view reality from multiple points of view. So in order to give an example of this, I'm going to show different toys, brinquedos. I know that word too. God, I know Portuguese. I'm good. So, different examples of a family-friendly Russian roulette. Okay? I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but think about it. I mean, it's quite a challenge. How can you make a family-friendly Russian roulette? I mean, it's a great game. Just make it available to the whole family. So we're going to see 4 different angles, interactive angles, from different takes, from different framings on the same game. Okay? So let's take a look first at the Japanese toy. Okay? That wasn't very successful. It's a kawaki, okay? Which is Russian roulette for kids, you know, for kids. And it wasn't a big success on the market. But it's I take my hat off because they really put a lot of work on it. So it's interesting. I mean, look at the design. I mean, they made sure it looked nothing like a gun. It looks like actually like a hairdryer. And actually, it has a hippopotamus in here, which I'm not sure. In Japan, probably Russian roulette and hippopotamus are part of the same mythology, just like Italian plumbers and princesses belong to the same. But this is a game where you have these bullets, plastic bullets, and one of them has a spring inside. So you just put the bullets, and you have all your friends for cookie and milks, and they say, oh, let's play Russian roulette. Yeah, sure. And one of them will get a little snap on the head, just a little poof, and he will lose, and he can play dead. Okay. So this is a kid's version. Okay, it's very plasticky, so it doesn't look like a gun. It's pink. Okay, because nobody ever played Russian roulette with pink colors, because this is a very male game. Okay? By male, I mean stupid, because I don't play this. So, for kids, this is an adult version. You can actually buy this online, which is called the chocolate Russian roulette. Actually, somebody should talk to Garoto about this. So, here, a different take, also different angle on the same. How can you simulate? How can you bring the thrill of Russian roulette to players? Okay, so these people, what they actually did is like, instead of creating a gun, they created these bullets. And one of those bullets, instead of having like, I don't know, cajou inside, one of them has a lot of chili. Okay? Chili, like pepper, pimienta, hot. Oh! Okay? And so the way this works is that you get a lot of friends, and especially if some friend you hate, or some friend you like his girlfriend but you hate him. And, so you can rig the game, but pretty much everybody brings a bullet, and actually they get the bullet inside their head, I mean metaphorically, and they eat the chocolate, and after a couple of seconds one of them their head will explode. So again, it's a metaphor, nobody dies, okay, somebody might be on the bathroom for a while, but again, you get close to this ideal Russian roulette-ness without actually getting in harm's way, or at least not very harmful, unless you are, like, I don't know. Well, anyway, let's talk about beer. Actually, Heineken pays me a lot about this, but it can be done with Skol, Brahma. I mean, there's different brands, they all work pretty much the same. This is a college game, so since we are in a college campus, we're allowed to talk about this. Has anybody played the Beer Hunter? No? Okay, you can. It's an open source game, so you can learn it right now. I heard there's a party tonight, so I'll be happy to teach anybody. And the way this works is that you need a 6-pack It could be a 12-pack. If you have a 20-pack, it works better. That's a great thing about drinking games. The more you play, the better they get. It's like, if you want to be game designers, keep that in mind. I haven't been able to download liquor on the XBELA so far, but we're working on it. So, the way it works is like you get these cervejas geladas, okay? And you get one of the cans, and you shake it like hell to build the same pressure as a like neutronic star inside it, okay? Oh my God, that's a really geeky joke. I mean, shame on you, shame on you. So one of them has this high pressure, but you can't tell which one it is. So you mix them around, and then you give it to your friends, and then everybody gets the beer can under the nose, under the nostrils. Okay? And this is the way it works. Everybody looks at each other and around, and they click. It's a point and click interface. Okay? And trust me, the poor guy or girl who gets a flash of beer in their brain is not happy. Why not? Because the beer gets spilled and he doesn't get to drink as much beer as his friends. Okay, this is interesting because you would say that beer cans have nothing to do with Russian roulette, but I played all these games, and trust me, this is the one that gets closer to the real thing. So, in terms of design, you don't really have to have like strong IP or strong like technology. You can still have that feeling. But actually, I would say that my favorite game is a game. Actually, I've been researching Russian roulette games for ages with government grant money. And my trips took me to faraway lands. And one night, I was walking through the streets of Kyoto, being chased by a lot of game vendors. I paid them with a fake credit card, but that's a different story for a different night. And I found this shop in the shape of a giant panda head. I was like, okay, this must be a signal from God, right? And this is an actual shop, a toy shop in Kyoto. I mean, you should leave right now and go there because it's awesome. And they were selling this Russian roulette toy, which is also a very, very interesting design, and which I'm going to show you right now. Which is this? It's called Russian roulette, and it's interesting because it looks like a gun, okay? But then it has this ring that you put on the gun, and again point and click interface, and it uses balloons. Okay, so you inflate the balloon, as in here. Okay. And inside the barrel of the gun, one of the 6 holes has a little needle. Okay? So you can actually play just like Russian roulette. And the moment the needle stings on the balloon, it explodes, and basically you lose your hearing for like 4 days. And but the beauty of the design in this case, I think they managed to get, it is a gun, but it's not really a gun because it has a balloon. But the most important thing in terms of design, it's the balloon itself. Because we all been kids, well, most of us, I assume. But, and we know how frightening, I mean, exploding balloons are, right? I mean, that's the most traumatic event. I mean, I don't think like therapy will exist if the kids haven't been like scared by balloons in their youth. And actually the balloon itself is an explosion waiting to happen. I mean, you can see it visually. Unlike the other examples, I mean, you cannot see the chill inside the bullet, well, unless you throw it out, but anyway. So it is a great feature in the sense of seeing this explosion waiting to happen. I mean, visually is the one that works better socially. So, again, different examples of the same game, different takes, different angles on the same thing. And so pretty much, to sum up my talk, all I wanted to tell you, I mean, it's like, it is useful to look at transitions from one dominated media form to the other. And in the same way that music, classical music, led to pop music, and that cinema as a mainstream form led to TV, we have to think in those terms of the evolution of current games. Okay? Not just the hardcore versus casual, but also how the market are working. The more diversity, availability of better tools, cheaper tools, more production. And the idea that just AAA games are not the most important things. So, to finish, do we have 2 minutes? 2 minutes? She's giving me this look like you wasted 15 minutes with your non-working technology. Just 2 minutes. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about something. That's okay. No, that's okay. I make fun of Argentinians. Brazilians are okay. We go for Brazil every time you play, unless you play against us. Now, it's a small story. It's a true story. So, I don't know if you heard that Uruguay did pretty well in the World Cup. Okay? And, which was very important for us. And during the World Cup, we were working with a Hollywood studio on doing some episodic games. And we had these phone calls every week. And one week we were talking about work, and suddenly one of our producers in Los Angeles says, "Oh, by the way, like, we heard about Uruguay on TV. We never heard of Uruguay on TV. I mean, they're talking about you guys. I mean, the first time I ever heard of Uruguay when we met you. But now they're playing soccer and they're winning." It's like, yeah, that's us. Yeah. I know that actually. I know Fernand. Yeah, it's a friend of mine. I'm not sure. But, and so every week we kept winning, and the guys in LA, they get more excited, and they're like, "Yeah, we're cheering for Uruguay," and we told them how to, like, these songs, Torcido Uruguay, and all those things, and but these are American clients, and for Americans, it's very important to be number one. So what happened is that we ended up being number 4, ahead of Argentina and Brazil. Anyway, that's not but it was such a big party. I never seen a party as big as when we were number 4 in the World Cup. And then, so we get this phone call, and our clients were really disappointed. They were like, "Well, next time, maybe you'll be able to be number 1. And we're like, "No, this is awesome. This is the best moment of our lives." "Well, yeah, but we're not number 1. We're number 4. Number 4 is not like, "No, this is great." And at a certain moment, they insisted, and we're like, "Okay, yeah, well, it sucks. We're really sad and depressed. As soon as the selection comes back, we'll shoot them. Shame to our country." And but I think what's important, being number 1, it's okay. But what is important is to level up. I mean, we got really excited because we basically outdid ourselves and defeated Argentina also, which is very important for us. And I think that's the most important thing. So if you are, as I am, interested in developing more games and putting a Brazilian, a South American face on game production, I mean, we can aim for AAA games if we want, but it's not that necessary. I mean, all we need is work harder and outdo ourselves. I mean, when I started with my own company in a tiny country like in Uruguay, 10 years ago, there was no game industry at all. Now there's like 7 studios. We're all about this close to be bankrupt, but that's okay. We have to keep working. And that's it. I mean, the important thing, again, is being number 1 is okay, but leveling up is more important. Thank you so much for your patience and your time. Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Agora nós temos um espaço ainda para perguntas. Eu vou fazer o seguinte, eu vou colocar um outro microfone aqui, e aí quem quiser se inscrever para fazer pergunta, eu vou pedir para vir aqui à frente. Eu vou deixar um microfone aqui com o Gonzalo e eu vou ficar aqui na frente também, tá bom? Pessoal de apoio, pode me dar uma forcinha aqui com o outro microfone? Obrigada.
By the way, that's my email, but I won't answer your email. I don't have time. But you can email me. It will make me feel good. I'll try. I promise I will try, but don't get too offended if I don't reply. Or if you get a reply in 4 years, it's like, oh, I don't remember that email. Okay? So, do you have any questions? I'll be happy to improvise a totally nonsensical answer if needed. You want me to teach you how to play the beer hunter? Yes? Okay, good. Looking forward to that. You pay for the beer, though. No questions? Yeah, that guy has a question. Yeah, sure. Shout it. Text it to me. You can. Você diga forte e eu repito a pergunta.
My name is Guilherme. I just came from another talk, and they were like saying, yes, you want to make games for a living, that's fine, but it's like you probably won't go very far because you have to think on how to build a company and get some money to get going. So you came from Uruguay, also very low studio, as you said, 0 studios when you started. So do you think it's possible nowadays to make a studio and really like work on entertainment and not like educational and advert games, or you think there's no way to escape from it?
I mean, you will have to sell some cocada to make some extra money. But, well, it depends. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what you heard, but I'm not sure that somebody told you you're not going to get very far away. I mean, it's all about, like, you have, I mean, I had to build my own company. I mean, which was very, very hard. Right now, making games, just focusing on knowing how to make games is not enough. You need to understand business. There's nothing wrong with the educational market in the sense that most educational games suck. So if you're good at it, you can do good work. Making a lot of money, well, you should play soccer, is that what you mean? And you can join, I can give you the Uruguayan citizenship if you're good and you can join the national team. But it is possible, and I've seen it. I mean, and again, I mean, we do have a very, very tiny community of game development, and we manage to eat every day based on what we do. I mean, and advert gaming is also can be a lot of fun. I mean, my advice in general is, if you get a chance to do a game, do the best game you have. I mean, you can. I mean, it doesn't matter what the goal is, but I mean, we're gonna die, okay? All of us. This is the gloomy part of the topic. And I know I'm not gonna be wrong. I mean, this is the only thing wrong, the only truth I'm saying. So, how many games are we gonna be able to do in our life? I mean, games or video games? 10, 50, 100, and no more than, I don't know, 200 if we're really, really fast. And so each chance should be an opportunity to do something interesting. And like, I've done games I'm very proud of. I've done games I could have done better. But even if I have to do a Bejeweled clone, I mean, I would kill myself if I have to do 5 every year. But just trying to get it as a learning experience. And in terms of business, I mean, seriously, I mean, you have to think of money from day one. For us in Uruguay, we do have one strength, that it's such a small country with no market that we have to think about exporting from day one. And in larger countries like Brazil, I mean, that's usually not the case, because there's also possibilities to do local games. So talking to people in business, I mean, there must be somewhere here in the university. I mean, the business people, they look weird, they dress differently, they have like more expensive cell phones. Most of them are crazy and jerks, but some of them are nice. And so you should try to talk to them. If you don't want to talk to them, well, just do something crazy, kidnap them. But it's something that I know everybody wants to focus on shaders and on 3D and on interactive narrative and everything. That's important, but trust me, with all the business parts, I mean, and making fun of them doesn't work. I tried that for a long time and it doesn't work. So that's, I guess, my advice. But yeah, I mean, we can do it. You really have to do it. You have to be passionate about it, and don't expect to make much money. Okay.
Olá. Bom, vou fazer em português, pro pessoal. Hoje em dia tem muita gente que quer trabalhar com a área de games e se vê que foi o que foi falado agora, né? Um mercado que é um pouco complicado, principalmente pra gente aqui do Brasil, que muitas vezes acaba trabalhando para estúdios de fora do que produzir algo interno, né? E eu tenho visto muitas, sobretudo na parte do Unity, que é o que eu mexo muito, muita gente está produzindo conteúdo para pessoas que desenvolvem games. Então você vê que eles fazem modelagem, desenvolvem ferramentas, e o pessoal que desenvolve games, que de repente é bom na programação e não é bom em modelagem, por exemplo, acaba usando isso para... acaba comprando, e essa pessoa acaba, na verdade, ganhando dinheiro, não produzindo jogo, mas produzindo coisas para jogos, né? Queria saber qual a sua opinião sobre isso. Você acha que é uma coisa que realmente tem algum futuro?
So it is quite a challenge. I mean, especially for countries away from Japan, the States, and Europe, where most of the action happens. It is tempting to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to be doing outsourcing, and then I'll save and do my own game, or I'm going to be doing other gaming, but then I'll do my own game. And on my experience, first, there's nothing wrong with outsourcing or with other gaming if you do it right. If you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, I mean, don't do it. Okay? But it is very hard to be able to separate those two worlds. I mean, it's like all those people who think they're artists. I mean, I worked for like a year in advertising, and it sucks basically because everybody believes they're artists, but I'm doing just this for a while until I can do my own thing, and they never do. So that's a very big risk, okay, of not being able to do your own stuff. But again, it's a cultural thing. I mean, I know a lot of people who really enjoy working with other people, very talented people. I mean, collaborating, and the more you can collaborate with other companies, the better. I mean, try, if you can, not to focus your work on just being a one-way service, but trying to show that you can help not just on the actual graphic you're making, the actual music you're making, but also on the concepts. It's not easy. You have to gain the client's trust, but it can be done. I mean, I started like basically pretty much, well actually we never, most of the time what we did is like, in my company we focus on, first we don't say we're cheap. Okay, Brazil is right now, as you know, is very expensive, so there's no way nobody will hire you because you're cheap, you're not. Okay, but it's important to say that whatever project you do, you try to offer as much as you can and make sure that the quality is as good as, even if you lose money. That has been my strategy at least. I mean, never letting a client down because otherwise you lose them and it's very expensive to get new ones. But on the other hand, I mean, I think it's essential not just to invest your own money on making your own games, but trying to find investors, trying to find other people. Because if you invest your own money, then you may end up with a game that didn't work and bankrupt, and that's not a good position. Again, this is not easy. I mean, you have to hang out with people who are probably very different than you, which is business people. Trust me, they're not that bad. After the fourth caipirinha, they're almost okay. Okay. So I wish somebody, when I started on this 12 years ago, I wish somebody had told me that. I was really afraid of that. I didn't like that. I'm still out. Again, I mean, they study this, so they know better in that sense. So you can complement each other. But it's a very big risk, and I'm not aware of a magical solution to that. But if you really like what you do, try to make it better and better. And also, what is essential, it's the connections. I mean, it is very expensive to go to GDC or to mainstream conferences, but show business is a business of trust. People have to trust you to deliver your content on time and on budget. And if they don't know you face to face, it's very hard for them to trust you. So unfortunately, I mean, the best way, I guess, is to get as much interaction with people in the global industry as you can. Again, very expensive, a lot of investment, but what it works. Of course, if you cannot afford that right now, online forums, trying to work on projects and building a good portfolio. And the other thing is like, try to do whatever you have inside. I mean, most of people who are starting in this business just try to clone the games they really like, and that's why we have like 45 million clones of Diablo and RPGs, Japanese RPGs online that are really bad actually. But if instead you do something that you really care about, I mean that it's easier to grab people's attention. I mean, just try to do something differently as what everybody is doing. One of our senior game designer, instead of sending a paper resume, he put on an online application. It's a toy shop with different action figures of himself, with different accessories of all the things he could do. And he actually designed the boxes and he put all the text on the boxes. I mean, one of the things we asked in resumes was that they spoke English. So instead of telling us that he did his first certificate or whatever, he wrote the whole thing on English. We gave him the job like in 30 seconds. And why? Because we basically had like 55 printed resumes that all looked alike, and one guy who really like went really the extra mile and did something to catch our attention. So that's another strategy. And try to don't be too crazy. You don't want to spook. I mean, if you go to gonzalofrasca.com, that's another designer who heard this talk like this one, and he actually put a picture of a little cat with a gun and said, if you don't hire me, I'll shoot the cat's brains. And I was like, okay. So my business partner, she interviewed him, and we never heard of him again. So don't go too crazy. But again, be creative, take risks. If you don't take risks, if you do the same as everybody else, well, you'll be just like everybody else. Okay? Is there a question? One more question? Or is we done? No? One more? Mais uma? Mais dois? Três? Quatro? Cinco? Seis? Sete? Eu estudei com a turma da Mônica. Era pequena.
Agora em português, ok. É um prazer estar aqui ouvindo você. E você falou a respeito de a América Latina deixou sua marca na cultura dos videogames, e sem querer reduzir essa questão à boa e velha questão dos nacionalismos, né? Eu fiquei pensando como poderia ser feito essa marca. E me veio à minha mente um antigo artigo seu que eu acho que faz tempo que eu li, aponta uma resposta na qual você falava da customização dos videogames e do teatro de Augusto Boal. Acho que era alguma coisa nesse sentido, se puder.
Okay, so he's actually quoting a paper I wrote like 10 years ago. So my webpage had one hit, and that was him. Thank you for being that reader. I was always wondering. I thought it was my mom. And I asked my mom, I was like, no, I'm on Facebook playing Farmville. I don't waste my time with your page. So, what was your name? Edson was asking about, actually I wrote my master's dissertation about the work of Augusto Boal, Teatro dos Oprimidos, and its relationship with games. And sincerely, not because I'm in Brazil, I mean, I already made fun of your soccer, so I'm not here just to be nice to you. But actually, I mean, I think Boal was one of the greatest game designers ever. I mean, what he did with Teatro dos Oprimidos is fantastic in the sense that he created. I mean, if you look, there is this game called this book called Games for Actors and Non-Actors, and Jogos para Atores and Autores. I think that's the title, and which basically describes like 50, 60 different games to deal with complex social, personal, political situations, like forum theater, for example, and that's awesome. I mean, that book is a gold mine of interesting things to do in serious games. I mean, it was part of my inspiration for creating news games. He has this, I think it's called Teatro Jornal, or it's people reading the newspaper and then building small plays based on that. So I know that it's hard to be a prophet on your own land, but it's, again, I mean, if you're interested in doing experimental games, educational games, serious games, I mean, I wouldn't look further than Boal's work. I mean, it's truly, truly, truly amazing and fantastic. So that's a great Brazilian. I had the pleasure to meet him a few years before he died. And he's a genius, probably one of the most strongest people in theater, like in history of theater. So that's our friendship Brazil. So, mais uma pergunta e terminamos. The last one.
Boa tarde. Eu queria saber como é que você vê essa proposta de aproximação dos jogos com o teatro do oprimido dentro desse panorama de aproximação do videogame e da televisão em relação ao videogame, ou ao cinema.
Okay, the most important thing is that ideologically video games are sold and marketed as new. We constantly have to have the newest thing, okay? The newest game, the Christmas 2011 game, the Batman and Uncharted 3 copy that I really want to have and I still don't have. That's what sold as us is the most important thing. But video games were not born out of a cocoon. I mean, they're just the evolution of something that we've been doing forever, which is playing. And it's really connected to just regular play. That's just so important. I mean, both at university and in my studio, I constantly fight with my team and my students not to think just about video games. I mean, to use pencils, to prototype on paper, with toys. Most people, when they're thinking about making a video game, they jump on the computer because we have this cool tool, this new shader, this new version of whatever. And that's important. But again, games are something that are really connected to culture. And that's why it's connected to drama, it's connected to TV, it's connected to movies, to literature. And the more you make those connections, the better view, the broader view you will have on what video games are. And that's going to help you. I mean, in my personal experience, I mean, as a game creator, it has helped me a lot. I mean, making connections. Like, I grew up during the Uruguayan dictatorship, so politics was really important to me. I remember going to Japan and showing my political games, and the Japanese told me, "You are weird." I mean, we're talking about the games, the people who make games about like strolling a dog, and they were telling me I was weird. Okay, and I took that as a compliment. Why? And they told us, I mean, we had never thought of making a game about politics, and I did that because, well, that was something that was important to me. So it is essential to make these connections, and thankfully this is happening more and more on the indie scene. It wasn't as frequent a decade ago or 2 decades ago, but there's still many examples. So the more connections you can do, the more you can explore the things you like. I mean, it's very important not to be narrowed down on video games. I mean, to expand your interests. I mean, we all like many things. Even we may look like game geeks, but we have other interests. And make connections between them. They are there because, well, games are just part of culture. Okay, that's the best strategy I can think of. So, and that's the exciting thing also on an academic level. I mean, this is brand new in terms of like academic history. I mean, nothing has been done. So it's up to us to make those connections and to do something that's smart, but also relevant to game making and to culture. People care about these things. They really, really, really care about films, movies, and games. And soccer. Okay. But thank you so much. Muito obrigado pela invitação. É um prazer para mim estar aqui. Muito obrigado.
Gente, mais uma salva de palmas pela palestra inspiradora do Gonzalo Frasco. E pedir para todo mundo continuar aqui no teatro, porque nós já vamos iniciar a plenária.